Welcome to my channel. I'm Vanessa and this is Have Curves Will Sew. Today I have for you the second part of the Fit series video that I'm doing with the Knit Essentials pattern from Allison Glass. I'll put a picture right there. So we have a lot to cover, so I want to get started. I did want to let you know that I am breaking this up a little further than I anticipated to begin with. Originally it was going to be a 4-part series, but I realized that doing the flat pattern alterations is going to take a little more time and I want to go into a little bit more detail. So I'm going to be breaking that up into a 5th video. So it'll be 5 videos in the series. So there's the introduction, which I'll link above there, that's already up, that you can watch. That just kind of introduces you to the series, lets you know what we're working with. And then this video, which is covering how to take measurements and tracing and prepping your pattern to do the flat pattern alterations. And then the next one will do the alterations, and in the 4th video we'll make the fit garment and test the fit, and then in the final video we'll do a couple of the variations. So with that in mind, why don't we get started? Just so you know, I did film the video you're about to watch on a different day, so I'm dressed differently. But I will see you back again at the end of the video. Alright, let's get started. For the measurements, I'm going to be using my dress form here to demonstrate. I think it's a little easier while I'm filming to do it that way, but these measurements can be taken by yourself if you don't have anybody to help you with them. Supplies that you'll need is a tape measure, something to write your measurements on. This is the download that I have that you can get on my website. I'll leave a link down below. If you did pick up, if you did pick up the pattern, the Knit Essentials pattern on, there is a sizing chart on page 11 in the pattern book as well. So I've already taken my own measurements to do the next part of the video, but I figured I'd do a little demonstration on the dress form on how to take measurements and where to take the measurements. So first off, you'll notice that there's some elastic bands on the dress form. These are just reference points. They're literally 1/4 inch or 8 inch elastic bands just kind of wrapped around and tied that I would recommend using. I would recommend using as kind of landmarks. You'd also want to mark your waist with like gross grain ribbon or a wider size piece of elastic. I don't have that because I have the waist line here on the dummy. So I'm marking the hips, the waist, and the full bust. Other things that you can mark will help find your nape of your neck if you wear a necklace, and then also on your shoulder point. A necklace will fall, I can demonstrate with this. So anything you put around your neck will fall at that point. So this is the base of my neck, and then this is the nape of my neck in the back for the nape to back measurement. Okay, so we're going to start. Remember, we pick our pattern with our high bust size, and that measurement you'll take right underneath the armpits across the front of the body. So you just wrap it around at your high bust right underneath the armpit, so right snug underneath your armpits, and that will be your high bust. And then you want to take your full bust, which is across the highest point of your bust, and your waist measurement. I always start at the top and work my way down around and then do the vertical measurements. So then you want to take your waist, and when you do your waist you want to take it at the bottom of your waist measurement, not at the top of that ribbon, but at the bottom of it. And then again at your hips, and it's going to be the widest part of your body, which is over the derriere, usually about 9 inches down from your natural waist is what the measurement is on your pattern. Okay, some other measurements you're going to need to do is a bicep. I don't have arms on that, but that's the circumference of your bicep. And you want to take your shoulder to where your short sleeve preference is, your shoulder to where your 3/4 length sleeve is, and then your shoulder to your wrist as well. Another one of the measurements that we're going to be taking is the shoulder to your bust apex. So you want to go from your shoulder across the fullest part of your bust to your apex. That is going to show us where the level of your bust apex is on the pattern in regards to your shoulder. So that's a very important measurement to take. The other measurements you need to take are, sorry, I'm looking at my list here, from your waist to your skirt hem. So the skirt hem that we're going to start with is just going to be like above the knee. And so again, from the bottom of your thing to wherever your knee is. And then again from the waist to the floor. And that'll be your maxi skirt length. We won't be using the maxi skirt for this initial fitting. We'll probably do the long sleeve on the dress, just so that we will be able to fit all three variations on the long sleeve. And then the knee length, like I said, for the skirt. But it's good to have that floor length measurement as well. That wraps it up for the body measurement portion. We're going to move on to tracing out our pattern. So I'm going to change the camera angle and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's get started. So in order to do our tracing our pattern, what we're going to need is our pattern. So either the Knit Essentials pattern or whatever t-shirt dress pattern that you're working with. Go ahead and take those pattern papers out. You'll only need the book as if your measurement guide is in there. We're going to set our measurements guide aside for just a few minutes. You're going to need a straight ruler, a curved ruler if you have one. It's not necessary, but it's helpful, and some tape. Oh, and pattern paper, of course. We're going to trace the pattern out. I'm going to use this really wide so that I can get more than one piece on it at a time. If your pattern is really crinkled, this one's on pretty thick paper, so it smooths out pretty well. But if to get a really super flat pattern, what you want to do is take a dry iron and iron it out. So this one here is our skirt and our sleeve. I want to start with the top. So I'm just going to put this one to the side for now. Put it down there. And we're going to start with our top pattern. So the reason, let me open this and then talk. The reason why we want to take our measurements before we trace our pattern is because we need to take our measurement, we have to use our measurements to figure out which pattern we're going to trace. So this particular pattern has sizes A through I believe. Let me just double check. I'm sorry, A through K. So each of these different lines, the first one is A through K. And what we want to do is find the one that you're going to trace. I do not recommend doing any marking on this pattern itself because you want to be able to preserve it in case you want to use it another time. All of the letters are right here in these little bumps and written very small right here on these two. And so what we'll do is we'll figure out based on our high bust measurement which size of our bodice that we want to choose. For me, I'm going to use the I because my high bust measurement is 46. And if I were to trace the entire pattern on I, my waist and my hips wouldn't fit. So I'm going to grade up at the waist and the hip. To start with, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to do a full bust adjustment on the bodice, I am actually going to do the straight I for the bodice, and then the graded pattern will be on the skirt portion. I'll explain that a little bit more later when we actually get to doing those things. So for right now, I'm going to set my rulers aside and my paper aside, and we're going to start by taping this down to the table. You could use pattern weights, but I recommend tape. It keeps it from shifting because you can always bump pattern weights. So I just start with one corner and I smooth out to the next corner. Make sure I get them down really well. And then I smooth out to the next corner. This is why you might need to, ooh, this tape is not holding very well today. I just cleaned my table service, so I think that there's some residue on it. So if you have the wrinkly pattern, you're going to want to iron it out just so you get a nice smooth surface. You're going to do the same with your tracing paper. So I'm just going to take this and lay it over the top. Use my rulers to hold it down. And I'm going to get my paper scissors and I'm going to cut across so that the roll isn't in my way anymore. Put this over here. And we'll take this one down. Okay, so once you have it all taped down and nice and secure, you can go ahead and start tracing around the pattern on the sides that you need. Like I said, there's markings on this particular pattern right there of which one you're going to need. So G-H-I, so I'm going to be this one here. And then mark the corners so that when I'm tracing, I know where I'm going. So I'm just doing little marks in the corners. And then I take my straight edge and I start tracing. Okay, so along with the outside lines, it's always a good idea to do your seam allowances as well as any other markings on your pattern. So like for instance, this one is cut on the fold, so we want to do a straight line here. So that indicates that we're cutting on the fold. And we'll write place on fold. I also mark on here the name of the pattern, the size that I traced off, and the particular pattern piece, and any other notes like this one's cut 1 on fold. And I always like to do that in a place I'm not going to make my alteration so that it stays. So for here, I know I'm not going to be changing the neckline any, so I'm going to write it here. Okay, so once you have all your lines traced on the outside, then go ahead and put in your seam allowances. So it's 1/4 of an inch. You don't need to mark a seam allowance on the center fold because there's none there. The quilting ruler, you can just line up 1/4 inch and draw your line. And I do that on all of the straight edges first, and then I take my curved edges and I just kind of walk it up a little bit. When I notice the line curves a little bit, then I just rotate my ruler. I check about every inch or so. So, and then I take my curved ruler and just kind of true up that line that I just made. I don't think I did this one. And then keep going around the edges. Around the curves, it's a little more difficult, but just take your time. The more accurate they are, the better your garment will come out. Okay, once you have all of those items marked, for this particular pattern there's some variations with it, and we need to mark those as well. If I lift this up, you'll be able to see it a little bit better, I think. So there are the lighter gray lines that say cut here for tank, cut here for tank tunic. So we're going to draw in those lines with the same seam that we did before. So whatever size that you cut out is the marking that you want to look for. Now I said that I probably wouldn't mark on this pattern simply because I want to be able to reuse it. But because it seems to be so light, I'm just going to put a little darker mark. This is a straight line, and I know this is coming from I. So right here. Same with down here. So make sure you're doing the same markings. And you probably couldn't see those because of the camera, but you'll notice them on your pattern. So if you have a pattern that has these variations, be sure you mark them. And then be sure that I mark these. Alrighty. So that was our back bodice, and now we'll move on to our front bodice. I'm going to stop the recording here and just work on all the tracing, and I'll meet you back after I have it all traced out before we move on to cutting out the pattern. Okay, I just wanted to quickly point out, you might notice I have some color on the pattern. So I decided that to not get confused with the variations, I kept the original in the pencil, but then I highlighted the seam allowances, or the seam lines, with a red highlighter. And then I did the tank top with yellow. And then if you can see right up at the very top on the right side, you see the little blue, and that is a variation for a scoop neck on the t-shirt. So I just kind of labeled those three lines, those three extra lines, just to keep myself in order. So if you have some highlighters or colored pencils or colored pens, you might want to do that as well. So I'm getting ready to trace out the skirt and the sleeve, and you'll notice that the sleeve is placed on the fold. If you need to do any adjustments to the sleeve width-wise, you'll need to trace this pattern as a full sleeve instead of a half sleeve. So I have got an example of that. Somewhere. Right behind me. Okay, so I've started tracing this already. So you'll see it's a little light, but there's the half sleeve. So I just line it up with this, tape it down like normal, and trace it out. Don't forget to trace your variations for the short sleeve, and then there's the mid sleeve too. I haven't got to that one yet. Then what you're going to do is you're going to flip this over. And you're going to line it back up with this original sleeve. I hope you can see this okay. I'm going to move the camera a little closer so you can try to see it. Okay, that's pretty close. So I'm going to flip it back over. So I've traced the half sleeve, like so. And it looks like I traced the wrong pattern size, so we'll be doing this one over. So trace the pattern sleeve, make some registration marks on your pattern piece, then you're gonna, or the tracing piece. Then you'll flip it over and you'll line those back up with the pattern. So make sure you're lined up on both ends. And then what you're gonna do is trace the pattern again. And you'll end up with a full sleeve. I hope you can see that there. Again, don't forget to mark all of your notches and your variation lines. Okay, now you should have all of your pieces traced and cut out. As you can see, I should have these many pieces for this Essentials pattern. You have two skirts. One is the back of the skirt and one is the front of the skirt. Both of these are cut on the fold. The sleeve, like I said, I'm doing the alteration on the full sleeve. That way, if I will have the alteration done on the short sleeve as well, and I will just have to cut the short sleeve if I want a short sleeve. And then two bodice pieces, front and back. And again, you want to mark all of your variations and any other cut lines. Place on fold, grain lines. There was no grain line on the sleeve. I just added one by using the center line that was the original half sleeve cut on fold as a guide so that it's parallel, so we'll know that we're cutting this on grain. And then you'll see I highlighted the different lines I had. For the bodice, it was a little confusing because there's a regular neck, a V-neck, a scoop neck, and then the tank top. So I wanted to highlight them so that I know which ones I was cutting. And then the red lines are all of my stitch lines. Leftover paper scraps, you don't want to get rid of them. You'll save them for putting behind the patterns when we do all alterations. So just kind of hold on to those. I just kind of fold them up and stick them out of the way until I need them. I don't keep the really small pieces, just the bigger pieces. And just in case you're wondering, I used mild liners to highlight these. They're highlighters, but they're little muted colors. I find them really fun to use in my bullet journals, but they work really well for this because it stands out, but it's not too garish. Alright, I'm back. So, I hope that was helpful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to answer to the best of my ability. For the next set of videos, we are going to work on the flat pattern alteration. We'll be doing quite a few different types of alterations, so be sure to have the pattern all cut out and prepped and ready to go so that you can follow along. Again, I want to thank everyone for watching and thank the subscribers to the channel. We're up over 100 and I'm really happy and I thank you very much. So if you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that. Just hit that red button down below, and then if you'd like to sign up for notifications, be sure to hit the bell. Well, until next time, happy sewing!